So I am glass etching my Secret Santa present using my Cricut and some Armour Etch, and I really wanted to share the process with you, so stick along with me to see how it's done. So this is the type of glass I'm using, and my plan is to put the name going down. So I'm making my Secret Santa present, which is a glass with etching on it, and I'm using Armour Etch, which is like an acid. So to use that, I'm making a stencil to go on the glass. So to make the stencil, I'm pressing down permanent vinyl onto my cutting mat. I did initially use stencil vinyl, however, because it doesn't stick very well to the glass because it's intended to come off, when you're using the acid it bleeds underneath, so it's not as crisp lines. Using permanent vinyl is fine because it takes about 24 hours to adhere, so I decided to use that just because then I'm going to get a crisper line with the etching. So as you can see now, I am finding what texts to use on the Cricut design space. So you want to use a stencil type of text so that when you weed it, you're left with one piece. Otherwise, as you can see in that R, if we weren't using the stencils, that R would sort of be a floating, there would be a floating bit in there that could get moved around. So by using a stencil text, you avoid that. Using different texts for different name styles. So I wanted to use a more elegant text for a champagne flute that I was designing, and the other three I'm making on a pint glass, so I want those to be a bit chunkier. After I've got the words, I'm then looking for an image to put on the back. So just typing into design space what I'm looking for. So I've looked for a drum kit because one of the people I'm making this for is a drummer. You want to try and get something that's as simple as possible for making the stencil. If you need to do a lot of weeding and lots of detail on there, it's going to be really tricky to do your etching on. Even if you're, quite used to using a Cricut, the stencil and etching stage, it's easier if it's all one piece. So having a look through, you can see there's lots of options on there, and I settle on one that's sort of mainly one shadow piece and then sizing it. Okay, so I've done the same. I've looked for 3 images, and I'm just sizing them to how big I think I need them. So I've done a drummer, I've done a bass guitar, and I've done a guitarist. So just sizing them to about 3 to 9 centimeters just from the measurements I've taken on the glass. Save them so that I don't lose anything, and then I'm going to the cutting page. So making sure it's firmly pressed down on the mat, and then I'll get it ready to load into the machine. And that's my cat. Okay, so this is the cutting page. I'm just moving them around on the mat just so I've got lots of space between the images. So usually it will try and be very efficient with how it uses the vinyl, but because I'm making a stencil, I want there to be quite a bit of space around the image, because it's actually the space around it that's I'm interested in sticking on the glass. Then I can put the Armour Etch in the gap. Okay, now we've got Cookie, who has come in. He's interested in what I'm up to and just wants a few scritches, so while the machine's cutting he can have a little bit of attention. Bless him. Okay, the fun of working with animals. He's wanting to get all involved now the vinyl's cut. So I'm just cutting out in each individual shape so I can then weed it and then stick it on the glass. It just makes it a little bit easier if I cut them out first. So I've got each individual sticker. And then we are on to the weeding, so getting the piece that I'm needing first, and then my weeding tool, and you're just going to pick out the letters. So usually you would pick out the outside and leave the letters, but because I'm creating a stencil, I'm doing it the other way around, so I'm picking out those. I haven't picked the best vinyl to use as a demo because you can't really see, but it gives you an idea of what I'm up to. Okay, so now you need to prep the glass. So using some alcohol spray and just spraying it onto the glass and giving it a wipe down so it's nice and clean and will adhere nicely. So I also have this little rest to put it in to stop it rolling around. You really don't need one of these. You could just use a tea towel scrunched up underneath if that's what you have available. It's just to stop it moving. So then taking my stencil, I sort of tried to flail around and just take it off, and then accepted I needed to use the transfer tape. So as I've shown you in previous videos, using the transfer tape to put the vinyl on, and then using that to then position it on the glass where you want it, pressing it down and peeling that back. And once it's on the glass, you just need to make sure that it's adhered properly and you don't have any lumps and bumps and things, because once you put the Armour Etch on, it will mean that any lumps there, it will bleed under. So just making sure it's nicely flattened on the glass and you're happy with it. Okay, so this stage, because your Armour Etch is acid, you need to make sure you're wearing protective gloves. So here I am putting on my my gloves before I then get the Armour Etch out. So it's this little bottle, making sure any drips are cleaned up quickly, but then I'm layering it on really, really thickly over the stencil in the gaps. So this will eat into the glass and leave a frosted effect. So the bottle does say to just leave it for 3 minutes. However, what I've found when using this is once you've got it on there, you then sort of mix it around on the glass, it gives you a much more effective outline. So obviously if you just leave it on there, it will be just going from the top. Whereas here I'm sort of scrubbing off what's already been affected and it's moving it around a bit. And as I say, when I've used different versions, this definitely helps. So set yourself a timer for 3 to 5 minutes and just keep swirling it around like this, and being careful about. So washing off the Armour Etch, and then you can peel off the vinyl. So although it was permanent vinyl, you can see it's peeled off really nicely because it's not been on there for very long. So giving it a clean, and there you can see the details and how it's come up with that sort of frosted look. Really pleased with how it's turned out, so let me know your thoughts. Is this a gift that you'd be happy to receive as a Secret Santa along with a nice bottle of fizz? I forgot to take a picture of the finished article, but there's a little close-up from the recording.